Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week I talk about anime that finally started working for me and the ones that did not. Because it's into the fall 2025 season, and I was going to do an episode a couple weeks ago and didn't because it just sounded like shit. A lot of stuff didn't want to. The stuff wasn't being dubbed, or as usual, because I wait for the dub episode, so that takes some time. But more importantly, it's just a lot of stuff that didn't work. Let's go over basically what I saw here. With my status as an assassin, obviously exceeds the heroes. I dumped it in 5 minutes. What I put down was a decent fight scene, but boring-ass dialogue for a Isekai-ish kind of thing. Because it was an Isekai about a guy who turns into an assassin from another world. Okay. May I ask one final thing? Villainous show about a woman getting dumped, but the dialogue was crap. So I gave up in a minute. Gatherer's Adventure in Isekai. It's basically what it says. You're starting to sense a theme, I hope. Past the monster meat, Milady. That one could have been interesting, but it was really stiff. And, it's food porn plus noble woman show, and I was like, man, this is way too... I'm expecting Past the monster meat to be a fucking, dirty show. What's the other one? This monster wants to eat me or something. That's all been subbed, so I don't know if I'm gonna get to it, but I was expecting something more like that, and it turned into some basic ass, something like the gorilla's go-to girl or whatever, the gorilla god's go-to girl or something, which is basic ass shit, but had a premise that I still liked in spite of it. That level of so I dumped it. Let's play. A few minutes in, I just wasn't into it. The main lady was kind of talking about a bunch of stuff about her bosses, and they were complaining. I think what got me was complaining to her father, I think, who's the owner of the company or the president, and the dude just sobs for a minute, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. Dark History of the Reincarnated Villainess. I mean, again, you're sensing a trend here. It's just, so much junk. And then Banished Court Magician aims to become the strongest. For fuck's sake, they're all doing things I've seen already. And they're basically just rehashing them. They're not interesting at all. They're not doing anything with the subject matter. They're not trying. My God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fucking shows in a 2 or 3 week span. No wonder I just gave up. And I'm just is there any good shows that are new this season? And thankfully, I did find one, because I was worried I'm going to be stuck watching sequels and legacy shows. But at least I found one. I found one show that I felt, and again, I don't think my standards are that bad. Putting a number on things, which I normally don't do. If I was to put a number on something, if I can a 6 or a 6.5, and I like the premise enough, the Unaware Atelier Meister, or Atelier Meister, or the Ace Attorney anime, things that aren't the most amazing thing ever, in execution. Or again, Gorilla God's go-to girl or whatever, that wasn't amazing, but I liked it enough, or something about it felt like it had some something that it was trying to do. It was really but I'm not looking for fucking Death Parade and Madoka Magica. That'd be great, but not everything can be those kinds of shows. Sometimes I just want to shut my brain off, but even these were just No, I don't want this junk food. But I found one that's probably going to be better than junk food, and that was With You, Our Love Will Make It Through. And again, this was the only show of the new stuff that I'd seen that really struck me. So the idea is beast people or beast folk are either genetically modified or have been experimented on or whatever, but they speak our language and they do their thing and they basically have beast faces and beast mannerisms and things. But they're going to live in Japan and whatnot, and in this case, go to school, if not work. So one of them gets assigned to the school and meets this girl. And like normally I don't have a fondness for these sorts of romances because you just are like it all does come down to chemistry once you kind of know, okay, we already know that they're going to fall for each other. So the question is, do they actually work as a couple? And I'm happy to say they do. The girl is like unsure of herself, but she's not super stupid shy, you know. She's almost there, but not quite. But then the other dude, the beast folk dude, is actually kind of like just I'm a good person. I'm a good natured person. You know, like I'll answer your stupid questions, even if you're assholes. You know, I'll turn the other cheek. You know, I'll just deal with this. And he does like have agency. They have agency. They even do the whole locked in a gym cupboard trick from like Toradora and freaking heroines, you know, all the heroines and whatever, that show. And it was the Loser Heroines. Yeah, that show. They pulled that same trick. So they do that trick here. Boys try to do something and they lock them in the cupboard in the whatever, and the beast folk dude is just like, calm down, it'll work out, it'll be fine. And I think it's just like there is this kind of energy. It has this like interviews with monster girls, like understanding that they're not trying to take it so goddamn seriously, but there's still some heart behind it. And again, I think that's what was missing from all the other shows that I was watching. There didn't seem to be any heart to anything, like no intrigue. Because I don't think the demi-human idea, it's been done before, it's been done better, but demi-human and then falling in love and then still dealing with the racial shit, like, I think it'll work. And it does, again, come down to how people are acting and perceiving and things of that nature. And if I'm not going to get something like Interview with Monster Girl Season 2, I can get something like this, which kind of scratches that itch and still kind of works for me, which is fine. Let's see here. Legacy shows. Let's go. And we'll start with the obvious one, SpyxFamily Season 3. SpyxFamily, one of the best shows ever. In fact, I think it's technically my favorite. Just something about it made it my favorite of all the shows I've ever watched. And I think it's coming up to 300-ish that I've saved that I remember. So think of how many other ones I've just dumped, either within a few episodes or a few minutes. So that could easily be maybe 1,000 at this point. I don't know. But for what it is worth, SpyxFamily, my favorite one. And that's even taking into account stuff like Apothecary, Psychopaths, Frieren, Konosuba, stuff like that. And an ambulance is coming by. Joy. Even later as it is, like 7:30-ish, I'm still getting ambulances and junk. Anyway, but anyway, so SpyxFamily, they started dubbing episodes, and this one was kind of neat. They did a couple of cool things. First one was Lloyd trying to fight off an excavator, which was pretty handy. Like, Anya notices it before anybody does, because it was kind of a reintroduction of the characters in case we've forgotten. You know, the first episode of the season, reestablishing things. So Anya finds Lloyd and gets while they're out and about and they're going to do something, but Anya's like, no, you got to do this, Papa, and all that. And Lloyd goes and then jumps in an excavator because, of course, he knows how to use an excavator. He knows how to do everything. So he stops the dude. Frankie gets tasked with helping Nightfall, of all people, do another mission on a side note. It's to get somebody, I forget what it is, get them some food provisions or something. A Nightfall basically just coerces Frankie to do this fucking job. Find this fucking guy, I'll pay you, get it done. And they bicker and they moan, and it's great because Nightfall is all just stoic and in love with Lloyd, and Frankie's just like, I don't believe this shit. So Frankie has to dodge bullets, and Nightfall is just making a joke of everything because she's Nightfall and she's Lloyd if she had tits. but it's just like, okay, because I'm always been kind of like iffy on Nightfall when they force it too much. Like, I like the concept, but I like it at a distance. So knowing that she gets to do her own thing that isn't just, oh my god, I'm lusting after Lloyd and I'm messing with her family. She gets to do something else. It's kind of nice for a change. The most recent episode was Anya trying to get away from, like, all of the class, getting away from this lady who just gives out those tonitrus. How do you pronounce it? Tonistrus? The bad ones, the bolts on your thing instead of the Stella. So I know words. Look at me. Tonitrus, I think, is what it's called. But they're dodging it. Anya tries to play to Desmond's, sympathies and basically tries to do the right thing, and she gets one instead. So hooray for progress and boo for not progress. But another half, because these episodes have been kind of cut in halves recently rather than full-length episodes, unless they're doing major scenes. So what the episode here, cuts into, and we'll probably finish in the next episode, is actually talking about Lloyd as a teenager and what he dealt with as, in his old life, and a lot of people playing war, and he was just kind of, I don't know if I really want to do this, and then having kind of a broken home scenario, and then really just kind of forcing his way to lying and cheating his way to acceptance, only to realize he made a mistake. But by the time he realizes he made that mistake, his world kind of goes to shit, and that's where the episode ended. It was cool seeing flashbacks to characters that we've kind of just taken for granted as, like, they are who they are, and yes, it's cool to hear about them and listen to them and their backstories, but to go, this long and then wait and to reveal their backstories is a unique trait. Because sometimes shows do that all the time. Sometimes they do it early and then they forget about it. This time they've established everybody way, way, way longer and then decided, okay, let's spend some time fleshing them out now. To Your Eternity, Season 3. I was really happy about Season 1. I was not really happy about Season 2. This one really struck me. And mostly for one thing that has happened in the last couple of episodes. Because I was not really fond of Fushi and friends in modern day. And even less so about focusing on Hayase and her ancestor Mizuha. But that changed immediately. Like episode 3 and episode 4, what they were kind of building towards with this was if anybody's seen like the Ancient Magus Bride, the school arc is basically Philomela being under her mother's thumb or grandmother's thumb and just constantly just being berated and abused, verbally, sometimes physically, but still. That sort of vibe. There's a reason that it's being done, but it's still cruel, and other characters have to step in and take care of it. this was going down that similar path in that, like, Mizuha's mother basically forced her to be the best at everything and understand everything, mostly because really Hayase's legacy and lineage is basically just, I'm the best of everything, and I'm entranced by this immortal being, and I have inherited knockers, so I have, like, the best of almost everything, and I'm insane about it. This dedication and obsession. So how it manifests into her mother and then passed on to Mizuha, it turns out, but they do it in this cool, real way. For episodes purposes, I will spoil this one. So if you haven't seen like episodes 3 and 4 yet, or haven't watched the show yet, just be warned. I normally do put spoiler warnings, or at least I try to attempt to, but this one for sure I want to, because damn. This show went in a direction I was not expecting it to, because for a while it was just like, hey, Fushi is interesting and he brought his friends and that's kind of interesting. It's all modern day. It's fun. Until, okay, I thought they were just going to kind of repeat the Ancient Magus Bride Philomel thing. What they did instead was have Mizuha wake up in a daze, because it looked like her mother and her were going to reconcile, but it turns out that the act of reconciliation was just a ploy. They figured that out. Mizuha went to see her grandfather and learn all the things about Fushi and do these things, but then she blacks out, and then she wakes up with a knife in her hand, and fuck, it's like just intense few minutes of the last episode until Fushi gets involved, tries to help her out. Mizuha basically just begs him to be her friend. So again, that obsessive behavior again, rearing its head, doing the crazy shit again, and she's getting the crazy eyes and she's falling for him, and he's sort of into it, which is weird, because he wasn't into it the million of other fucking times that this immortal being tried to. I don't know why he'd be interested now, but whatever. I don't know where the show's going, but it really amped things up. And, he wants to help Mizuha, but doesn't really know how to handle it, like, because the mother situation was so complicated, because she has no memory of what's going on. Obviously, there's some conspiracy, but they haven't filled it out. But I just think the early season of To Your Eternity was so freaking intense and so good that it didn't hold anything back. I think the second season sawed off the edges, and it was nice to bring like this unexpected fuck you sort of vibe back to the show, kind of in the way that Shield Hero didn't, because they faltered, and I never really felt like they ever got it back, and I've dumped that since. So it was nice to see a show that was like, we're not set in our ways. We can rebound in a very big way when we need to. And it was really important that they did, because that second season was not terrible. It was just a far cry from as good as the first one was. So I've got good vibes about this. Speaking of good vibes, Gachiakuta continues, as does Tougen Anki. Let's just get Tougen Anki out of the way, because it's the weaker of the two. They're doing recon stuff. They're learning about recon stuff. The new main bad guy dude is some scheming dude. I like him a little more than the other dude who was kind of an asshole, experimenter guy. This guy's more of just, I'm just scheming and I can see everything that you're doing, and we're Tokyo and whatever, and I'm gonna kill you. And I'm like, it's fine. But it doesn't try to be better than it should, unlike Gachiakuta, which is a total shonen as well, but seems to have some balls and heart to it, I think. The character of Amo met a terrible end, So they go about and they do other things, and they try to go back to the givers try to go back to their headquarters, only for them to get ransacked. The receptionist lady calls it off, and it's fine. So they go elsewhere just to figure out that the raiders, the crazy dudes they're chasing and fighting all the time, came to them. And just up front said, "We'll fight you. Fuck you. Have fun doing that." So they stopped on kind of a cliffhanger. They were like, "Let's bring you to some abandoned battlefield. Let's get this shit done." So those villains don't just scheme, but they have the guts to just go and say, "I'll fight you. I don't care." And I think they're gonna fight them like 6-on-3, something like that. So they really do have some guts in that sense. But Gachiakuta is good. Lots of these shows are really good, and I'm hopeful for the season, even though that, like I said, the run and the glut of shows that was really freaking bad did really suck. But I managed to find a show with you or love will make it through to be pretty decent, and I hope that sticks. So I don't have the sheer amount of shows that I did last season or even 2 seasons, but 5, 6 shows, and hopefully something else after that should be a decent enough amount. And a lot of them are legacy shows, so they will keep my attention, and that should do it for this week. Next week's review I've already done. It's Zenshu. Speaking of good shows, Vagrant Story. I'm gonna have to spend a night kind of going back over some of the finer details, like the battle system and the requirement system. I know the story, I know the visuals, and I know I'm not really jiving with the game a whole bunch, but digging deeper into the systems and the mechanics so I can kind of understand it better, so that I don't feel like I'm just pooing on the game just because I didn't understand it as well as I could have. People like Vagrant Story. I wasn't really one of them, but I want to give it a fair shake, so I'm going to try and spend some time understanding a lot of the crazier mechanics that the game does present, and maybe people who do play it understand why they got it right, and I just never did. Let's see. Then we've got Gangsta, Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies, and then Kowloon Generic Romance. So busy as usual. And now that I don't have the fear that taking a couple weeks off doesn't hurt. Taking a week off a podcast doesn't hurt me. If there's nothing to talk about, that's a good thing. I think that's healthy, and it says, okay, you don't need to spend time doing that. Don't worry about it. The world doesn't end because you didn't find shows to watch. It would have if I hadn't found the new shit, but again, it's like, what's one week? It happens. But that will do for this week's episode, and I will see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.